Hey guys. Just gonna wait for everyone to kind of pile in here. And then we'll start talking about what we're gonna do today. I'm just getting some stuff set up here real quick, you guys, before we get into the questions. All right. Let me do one more thing real quick. Hmm. All right, let me pull this off screen real quick. Okay. Cool. So this was our most recent project. All right, so let's get started here. So today we are going to go over everyone's questions, right? We got the participation questions here. And then we're going to go over everyone's projects from last week who have submitted so far. And then including Jasmine also sent in one for her motion design principles in After Effects. So I want to go over that as well to give her a chance to give her live feedback on that. And then we're going to be introducing our next assignment, which I am going to be changing kind of the way it's structured, and I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to it. But this project, I kind of want to make it bigger than it already is in Canvas. And for those of you who do class online and not live online, I will give a couple options. So you can do either you'll be able to follow the instructions that are already there for like a normal credit for 100% or 100 points. Or if you follow along with the techniques and the stuff that I do in class, you'll get extra credit. I'm going to make that project worth 200 points because it's going to be bigger. I'm going to make it like a whole scene and not just like one kind of thing happening, but we'll touch base on that in just a second. Um what's up, Audrey, in the chat? How are you doing today? And then Lena's also in the chat. She wanted to let me know that she just submitted. Yep, and I downloaded it for you. I did respond to you inside of Slack as well, Lena. So, but I have it downloaded and we'll go over that today as well. All right, let's go ahead and start with our questions for the week. And Lena's question is actually first here.
Hi.
So,
So the problem I had was in the C4D project, which was the squash and stretch scene. When I tried to make the balls bounce at different times by staggering the keyframes, in the video when you clicked on the object, then it would highlight those keyframes that it belonged to. But as you can see, if I click the pumpkin, it doesn't show the pumpkin keyframes. And I've been getting this strange window around here. And even when I
that's
try clicking off, I can't get rid of it.
so
Or
weird.
when I try clicking on the keyframes to highlight,
It
it
looks
won't
like
work.
this section right here. Hold on, let me turn on my notation app. Audrey, why are you sore? What were you doing? Fight Club? We just can't talk about it, right? I don't know if you guys have seen Fight Club. Gosh, I mean that's an old movie. It's probably like 20 years old now. Older than that. Um, but it was definitely like, I'm sure you guys have heard of the like what Fight Club is and that you don't talk about Fight Club. I don't know. I'm getting into it. Anyways, Lena, your problem I think happens to be this thing right there that's selected on. Let's see if that is the case. Let me open up um the project from last week. Ooh, weightlifting. Awesome. Um I love weightlifting. I hate cardio, but unfortunately I have to do more cardio. So pain. I like working legs mostly though. I've naturally very strong legs, not to boast, but like I have weak little baby arms, so I can't lift. I can lift a lot because you use your legs to lift, right? Uh getting off on tangents. I'm sorry, you guys. Let me open this project real quick. Cinema 4D files. Let's just open this one real. Oh, cool. That was the case. Let's see what it is. I think it's just like a highlight keyframes button that's there.
So
Let
I'm
me
just wondering how I would fix that. Because also when I click on the sphere, it doesn't highlight the keyframes here too.
Yeah, that
And my second question is, can you stack materials?
so
For
kind of.
example, on this text layer, I used I've been experimenting with the materials,
Love
so
it. I love that you're doing that.
I know the material that comes first is the one that shows, and then the ones behind it don't show up on the text. But I'm just wondering if do I have to delete the ones behind this material, or can I just keep it there? Will it
I
affect anything?
will show you.
And
Let,
finally, my last question.
let me show you that before you get to your last question. I love how the questions are asked, by the way. Also, what's up, Keith? I see you in the chat. So, how you doing today? How's everyone doing? I was asking in the masses, but like how is everyone doing today? I know um maybe I had just like a nice fresh week start, but I'm having a pretty Normal day, I would think, and I don't like to pass those up because normal's good for me. Let me first of all open this right here. And this little button is the one that if you, it's a region tool. So if I activate that and bring this up here, and then select these, and then I try selecting the other options, it doesn't allow me to do that. It looks like it's meant for you to be able to like focus, like have a focused area within your timeline. We can always right click on this tool and see what else it gives us the option to do. I have never used it, but let's see just maybe what the option is for the region tool and why we might want to use it. Moving or copying groups of keys via a drag and drop. The region tool is basically nothing more than a floating selection that can be changed at any time and lets you edit key groups in either dope sheet mode or in F curve mode, which is cool. Large key groups can be copied and accurately pasted somewhere else. Okay, that's neat. The selection frame has handles at all corners and on each side, which can be scaled. The frame numbers at which the selection frame lies are displayed at the top left. Okay, so like here in that little area right there. So cool. Like this little section right there. Um, every key within a given selection frame will be selected. So that's pretty neat. That allows you to do that. How to use the tool, including keyboard shortcuts. So maybe what happened, Lena, is that while you were doing stuff, maybe you clicked, accidentally hit like a keyboard shortcut because it looks like click plus drag plus alt will like move the regions or, so that's always a possibility. You could just accidentally grabbed um, a region enter. But if you just want to shut that off, I think you just click that and it disables it. And that way, if you click these sections, it allows you to select all of the keyframes along with it if there was one for this. Let's see. There we go. Okay, we're looking at the ping. I didn't animate the one ball, that's why. So the other question you had was about adding materials, like multiple materials onto objects. So you can't like stack them over specific sections. What do I mean by this? So let me just kind of create a new tab here so that you can see. I'm not going to save that. I'm going to create a cube. And then I'm going to hit C on that cube to make it editable. And in my materials manager, let's just do some colored ones. We're going to add luminance and we're going to change the color of this ball or this one to green. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this. All I have to do is select it, copy, paste. Make this one blue. And paste. And make this one red. All right. Good enough. And in order to like add materials to different parts of your object, you will have to select certain faces, right? So this is a very simple way of adding multiple materials or textures to an object versus doing like UV texturing, which is like picking specific like sections of it and like drawing on the textures, which is something more that you would do with like a very complex object, right? But with the simple stuff that we're kind of doing in Cinema 4D, this will be easy for you guys to do. And so I created the cube, I turned it into an editable object. I come up here to my polygons mode and I select that, and then I click a face here, right? And let's say I wanted to make this one red. I can click and drag it to there onto that face, and then that face specifically, if I hit Control R, will have that red colored material on there. And let's say I wanted this one to be green. I would just drop that. And then I wanted this face right here to be blue. And now when I hit Control R to do a render preview, I have multiple materials or textures on one object. The way you can tell is up here in the objects panel, right on your layer here. You have, first of all, little sections. This one shows that it's on a certain polygon or a certain face. So that's what this little triangle means. And then notice that before each one is the material. So it's adding that material to that face, right? So if I double click on this one right there, it's showing that this material is connected to this polygon. And so on and so forth. And it's kind of like a UV. It's adding like a UV tag because we're putting them on separately, but it's just it's a simpler way of doing that. And so then if you have an object with multiple ones, let's say we added a cube, a new cube. Let's pull ourselves back a little bit. Let's select that cube and let's add a fillet cap onto it. So what is the fillet? Oh, I am so sorry, you guys. I didn't realize that my camera, I didn't think about that. If I go back up here, if I close, make this smaller, and then I zoom into this again. Yeah, if that, oh, okay. So what Lena was actually wondering is if she stacked her materials on her object to decide which one she wanted to use, can she do that? You can absolutely do that, but I will say this, it becomes like a messy process to do that. You can, by all means, if you're not like doing a bunch of it. Um, but eventually, once you settle on one, it's a good idea just to delete the tag off of the object here, but leave the material in the material panel here so that if you ever want to go back to it, you can just be like, okay, I want to go back to this one right here, and you can grab and drag and drop it that way. But yeah, I mean, for these smaller projects, it's not a big deal. For larger projects, it might become an issue, right? But what I was saying before is that these little polygons here, these little triangles, are indicating that we're on a polygon, that it's a selected polygon. And the material tag that comes before that polygon is the one that is on that particular one. So this polygon right here is going to be the red face. This polygon right here is the green, and this one is the blue face. And I'll just continue kind of what I was saying about the object here and adding more segments, right? Like if we add some more segments onto this, 5, 5, and 5, and let's see, NB, we want to see the wireframing on that. And then you can add a fillet onto here, which is going to add like a beveling to it, and I can increase that radius there. And so like I've got this cube that is rounded on the corners, right? A more complex geometry. Oops, let me grab this and move that around. But if I were to still do this, hitting C to get an editable object, and then I come in here and my polygon tool selected, and I start selecting these, holding down Shift, and I can just start to change them based on that. There are a couple options. You can hit, I think it's L, the loop. Nope, that's line. Let's go into this one. And over here, these aren't the ones. There's different ways to select your polygons. Okay, so you can do loop selection, ring selection. If I wanted to do a ring, I could do that. These also have different shortcuts. The ring one is UB. The loop selection, I think, is UL, which is like very similar. And if you hold down shift, you can select it like that. So if I wanted to add the green to these, I could do that. And then let's say I still wanted to make these ones red. I could just do this and drag it onto the cube that way. Oop. You have to drag it onto the actual object out here, right? Ooh, I had them all selected at the same time. I just want to grab this one and this one. And drop this here. Now, there's obviously the materials are like stacked on top of each other here. So whichever one's furthest inside of your object panel, whichever one is furthest on the end of whichever materials on the end of your layer here is the one that's going to show, right? So I hope that answers your question. It also gives you a little bit more insight in how to start like playing around and experimenting with these materials. And then let's get to your final
Question
question.
is about the auto squash and stretch. You said that you can use like this squash and stretch in this icon on the sphere, but can you use it on other objects like the dice?
Yeah,
That's all my
absolutely.
questions.
Good question there. So these deformers inside of here can be pretty much used with any basic objects that you have here. So I can add that deformer onto, you can use it probably on any of them. But the cube here, like if I wanted to add this into this cube, and then I fit to parent with that squash and stretch, select that again. And let's drop this down here. Let's select the object mode here in that, the selector. Or just our option there. But if I start changing the factor, you can see that it squashes and stretches the object as well. And it gives like a nice taper effect to that box, especially when you're stretching it out. Really tapered there, and then you can move that center down. So it works with any object that you attach it to. It should. Even this is an editable object, and it's still attached it to that, so that works. Good questions, though. I like the way you guys are starting to think like more in depth about the work you're doing. All
So,
right, Nakara.
for our assignment this week, is it just, you could say we're kind of freestyling our work, like using everything we learned and kind of putting it to this assignment? That's my only question for this week. Thank you.
I mean, kind of. You're still sticking to what we're doing in class, but yeah, you guys can have more creativity as far as like materials go and kind of the object that you throw in there. Like Lena, cool. I saw it real quick on your in your question, but you put a pumpkin in there instead of like a pepper or something like that, which I thought was neat. So yeah, you can do that a little bit more. You do have a little bit more creative freedom in this one, but I just want to see that you guys are understanding.
View, but sadly it panned out to be like this. So I was just wondering if there's a way to fix this, or possibly if I can just make the texture more obvious and more clear to see.
There is, it looks like it did kind of work on there. I can see what you mean. This is just a quick render preview, right? So it still is going to show up a little bit grainy here because it's not like a full on render, which takes a minute to do depending on how many cores your computer has, how hard your computer works at doing that. And so it, this is still not a fully polished version. Let's see, I think I have one on that. Let me do this one real quick. The impact one, I have materials on that. When I hit Command R, okay, yeah, studio thing. This is still kind of showing up really grainy, and it might not be a full representation of what it shows up when I actually render it out. Actually, no, that should be exactly how it would render out there. So it could just come down to your settings on your material. I saw it was plastic, right? Let's see if we can. Material, similar one that you had. I believe in your question, Jesus, it was. There's not a strong highlight there, so it should have been this one, like the diffuse plastic. I'm gonna grab this diffuse plastic and throw it in here. Throw it on our. I wasn't thinking the ball, but we could put it on the text. I'd rather it be on the text. Or just drop it to the text manually. There we go. Okay, it's giving me that. Yeah, I mean, this texture is pretty much very similar to the regular viewport image versus the render itself. But if, let's say, we open this up here and under, let's see, the reflectance, the luminance, we might be able to change. Maybe some of the different textures of it, right? Let's see here. We added kind of like a rusted texture to it. I don't know. Just to see what it does. It's not shown. Okay, not that one. There we go. We can start to add, if you go under displacement, you can start displacing like the material and choosing just different kind of options in here will allow you to give that more of like a texture. Depending on which texture you pick. Let's go back and add something different. Instead of the brick, let's do surfaces. Maybe pavement would be interesting with it. And just kind of messing around in these settings. Can change the scale of it. So if we wanted it smaller, you can make it bumpier. And so it's kind of like this weird textured one. Let's see if it still applies that from when I quick render it out. Yeah, kind of. You can see like this bumpy looking texture to the material there. So if you want to go in there and you can start kind of messing around in the settings and adding different displacement's going to be a good one. Let's see here what else we could use. Normally I would have thought the bump map would do that, but because you can add different things into different Let me move this over to the side. Oh, come on. Material editor there. Before what I did real quick, if you guys couldn't see that, I just I went and added the displacement um onto the material, and then in here under texture I went down to surfaces, and then I added, I think, gravel. Where was it? Pavement. And then I double clicked on the pavement here, and under shader you can change like the scale. The seed's going to change like the randomness of the pattern. You can change your gap here, so how thick you want your like grout, like essentially that's what that is. How soft you want it. Um, if you want them to be more crooked and have more of like this random, like more kind of puzzle piece looking to it, can change the colors on this. So you guys can come in here and start playing around with it. The color's really not going to do much on this because we have color already added on this with the luminance and the reflectance panel. So unless you want that material specifically, then I would look up that material. But yeah, you can start messing around with stuff like this, and then it should be showing up. It could also be your render settings are the reason that that's not rendering appropriately. So if we go under here, and if you're rendering in the viewport renderer, your materials aren't going to look as good as if you're rendering inside of your physical or standard render, right? Because the viewport renderer is going to render what you see here in the viewport, versus the physical renderer is going to render like a higher definition. Like the materials are going to look nicer. You're going to see you're going to see like reflections in the materials. You're going to see the shadows are going to look better. You're going to, it's harder on your machine, but it gives you better lighting, and a better like environment and reflections and whatnot on your final render. So that could also be another thing, is if you're rendering in the viewport render, you could get issues like that as well. But good question. Rendering materials isn't always easy. So I have Melissa's question.
Hi. One question I have is in my Cinema 4D, whenever I would try to change the gradient to this, it would crash and I would have to go to Task Manager and end task. And I was wondering if there was a reason why my computer kept crashing. Thank you. Goodbye.
That is super odd. It's not a normal thing, I will say that. Maybe we can address that on our own little, like, if this is still an issue for you, Melissa, we can talk about that and then get that issue fixed out, because it's not a normal crash. So let me real quick, I'm gonna send you a message. All right. Josh, let's go to your question.
Hi. I hope you're having a good day.
Cool. Yeah, I hope you're having a good day,
Um,
Josh.
so if you had to recreate this project, would you rather do it in Cinema 4D or in the other one?
First off, I like how you called it the other one. We've been working in this programs for like 5 weeks now. So I don't know, the other one. It just made me laugh. Funny. It was funny. I like the project more in Cinema 4D, I think, because it just looks cooler versus in After Effects. I mean, I think 3D is just in general more eye-catching because you have so much more to work with, like lighting and materials, and your environment looks different. But you can also do it really neat inside of After Effects as well. It would just take a lot more time, but it's easier, I think, in After Effects. I think that it's a little more difficult inside of Cinema 4D, but I prefer out of the projects doing the motion design principles. I think the Cinema 4D one looks cooler, in my opinion. Natalie, let's go to your question.
Hello. It's Natalie. I'm not showing my face for this one. Sorry.
It's okay, Natalie. No worries.
It's a little bit of I'm a bit of a mess. But for this one,
We have those days. We all have those days.
there we go.
There's some days when
Just
I'm like,
wanted
I
to
don't
say,
want to
like
be
for
on
the
camera.
pumpkin, it for some reason it looks like it's clipping through when it's rendered, but I believe it's just the lighting. Let me see if I can. Different. And right here, and yeah, I don't know why it looks like it's clipping, but it's not. It's in they're far away from each other. But think that was it. I think if you have any tips about that, it might
Oh,
be the
like in
texture that I have here for
so
the
it's
text. I believe
yes,
is
it's the material. So what you're dealing with there, Melissa, good. See, I think you're picking it up and I'll
the
let this
purple
play
gloss.
and then I'll
And for the weight,
Okay, yeah. Let me go back to that then. It's because your material has a reflection to it. You can see that reflection right there. Like it looks like a little window, right? That's how you can see in these materials whether they're like a high reflectance material or they're not, right? Like this is just an HDR studio, don't worry about that. This bronze material like has a shiny surface and you can tell because it's reflected. Although it's kind of the it's like not a super reflective material, right? Because your reflections in here are kind of feathered on the edges. But it's shiny enough, right? But let's say we look at for instance, glass has a high reflectance right here. I bring this material over here and we look at it. It's sharp edges on there because there's not a real texture to the material, right? Glass is very smooth. And so because of that, the reflections are going to be hard in it, especially because the material is clear as well, like super clear. And so when you have that, it's going to reflect all sorts of things out of that material. And so in here, your reflection is probably more similar to the brass look, right? But because of that, it's going to catch the colors and the object kind of in the reflection of the material on your H. And so that's what that is. And it's not actually clipping. But good catch on there, seeing all these things, being able to start pointing out like small
and for
detailed
the
stuff.
weight one,
It takes time to
it's
get
not
into that.
doing the viewport thing that usually happens. Also, I hope it's okay that I let this the big one kind of.
Yeah, that is fine. And I super enjoy how you made the words bounce. It definitely sells the weight of the object even
Roll
more.
away. Thought it would be kind of funny if they both matched each other.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's
um,
fine. Great
this
roll
is
on there.
supposed to
Good
be the
rotation.
moon. Looks weird here, but then when you do the rendering, it looks like how it's supposed to.
Yeah, cool.
Um, maybe I changed some things by accident.
No,
So if you have any
sometimes
tips about that, that would be
the
really
viewport
that would be really
render,
helpful. So I don't know why
um,
this looks too close to each other. Not notice that. That's weird. I think it's just the fact that it's curled up like that.
so it's
But
kerning. Kerning is the space in between your letters. And you can increase or decrease the kerning to tighten up that space or to, spread the letters apart. You can also make that text editable. And so that gives you the ability to work with each separate letter individually. Um, as far as like the object looking like a moon inside of your viewport render, the reason that the materials do not look like they would when you render them is because your computer is focusing on, hey, let's show the motion and not necessarily the materials. If it were full, you would have to have a really massive computer to be able to show all of your reflections, all of the light, all of that kind of stuff in your materials and on your objects live, like a live preview of it. And so that's why when you hit Control R to show, which is normal because of the floor or the studio, it's the studio that's doing that. But that's why these images, they kind of look chunky and weird, right? You can change this if you want to. If you go into the material like this granite, for instance, and I go to the viewport here, I can change the texture preview size from default. Let me zoom in. Let me see if I can zoom in here. I guess you're not going to do it. Anyways, I don't know why it stopped working for me. Maybe it shut off. 1 second, guys. There we go. Must have shut off. You can change your texture preview size here by just clicking on this drop down and then changing it to, I don't know, this one. Which would allow me to see it. It allows me to see it sharper right here, like what the actual preview of the texture, the material looks like here inside of the attributes panel. But I don't think, maybe if we go to viewport settings, which I think is, it's Shift V. And I don't recommend doing this anyways, though. Yeah, it looks like you can mess around with your shadows and reflections and stuff here. So you can increase these things that you're seeing, right? But there's a reason that it downgrades everything in your viewport versus when you go to render it. And that's why your moon looks all crazy, right? I think that the only way you can do it, the only place you can do it is inside of the material here under viewport right there. And you can change the preview size. Nope. Let's undo that. The viewport display allows you to see these things here, but I just would leave it the way it is. And then just render it. Just knowing that it renders out okay is all you need to know. And then, while you're looking at it, it might look like trash, but at least it doesn't render like trash. That's the biggest thing. That's what you don't want. And then the letters, let me show you that, like these here. So if I go to my mode text here, and then I select kerning, let me drop this little arrow down, and I start increasing the kerning, it's going to increase that space in between my letters, or I can decrease it, and it's going to change the, it's going to obviously tighten those together. The tracking here is going to be very similar to that, but I think that the difference between the tracking, I feel like the tracking also includes line spacing. I hit 0 there. You can also up here, this, select your motex and hit C, right? And then when you drop this down, or you can select your text, whatever one you want to do. And as you drop this down, you notice that all of a sudden you have the ability to have control over every single separate letter, right? Which means you can animate them differently as well. But I thought it was cool how you did that. I thought it worked really well. But yeah, that's kind of how you get a little bit of separate control over the different variables with your text as well. Let me just play the rest of this. play.
I just had also an interesting question of basically how do you network? Been wanting to figure that out because I just any help with that would also be great.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
networking, not a problem. Great questions today. Networking is just kind of happens naturally, I think, when you start working with other creatives in the field. Whether you're doing projects together, when you start working with colleagues that do the same thing, and you start making these acquaintances of friendships that with people who are within the field, right? Another thing that you can do, they used to have like meetups in Phoenix that uh were for motion designers and animators. They still might have kind of stuff like that. There's different groups that you can join online that are for animators and motion designers, and like different Discord groups and things like that that you can join into, and that broadens your ability to meet these people in different countries as well, which is pretty cool. And asking different questions. Let me see if let's just look real quick. Animation Discord channel servers. Yeah. Disboard. That's different. Naruto world. That's cool. So these are more like animation. Art crew might be one. You can just kind of go through these. Let's see. Search for like um animator would be a good one. A lot of anime stuff. That's a problem when you start searching this stuff, is it gives you like more like anime and cartoons and or like shows to be following. Let's see, motion graphics. That one might give us more. There we go. Just different servers. I would search up motion graphics and there's different servers that you can join. Motion hideout, that looks cool. Different keyframes here. But yeah, and then just really just starting to keep these people's information and keeping good relationships with them. And that's how you can reach out to them. If you haven't talked to them in a long time, that's even okay. Like there was a voiceover artist who I haven't talked to probably in 3 years. And we recently, someone asked me for some voiceover talent. I gave them her information because we just had a great relationship. We worked well together when we did work on a couple projects. And I was like, you know what? Here's her information. And that just helps you get jobs that way. So just kind of keeping a good rapport with people that you meet within the field, going to different meetups or anything like that, or different organizations or clubs if they have them, meeting like just even asking inside of Slack, hey, does anyone want to do a side project with me? You guys could do that and work together to create a different project together, and then those build ties as well. So really just putting yourself out there, I think that's the biggest thing, and just like taking that breath and taking that leap before you go do that. Especially a lot of people in this field are introverted. We work at computers. There's a reason we like art. Um, just it's just kind of natural within the field. And so being able to say, hi, my name is this, like, let's work together. I like your work. Reaching out to people on Instagram or any kind of like TikTok or any social media accounts where you follow different people or you see their work and you're like, hey, that's awesome. Like you can start chatting that way as well. So, but yeah. All right, Jade's question.
Hello, I'm Jay, and can I make the ball rotate like this? for look more real?
Yeah, adding rotation would be great to do that, Jade. If you notice, Melissa, she added some rotation into it as well. And so if you're just going in there, let's see. Let's go to the mass one. Wait. All right, we got this one open. Let's get a material on here. Like a pattern on the ball that we can read. And then you can just add that rotation into it. The bowling ball. Yeah, Keith, great. Yeah, ArtStation. Yeah, there's a lot of great artists on ArtStation. Is a good, yeah. Yeah, inspiration references. Yeah, reaching out to people and just saying, "Hey, I really respect your work. I like your work. Where'd you learn? What kind of stuff?" Like people in this field are very open and willing to give information. It's not like and just like trade secrets. We don't tell anyone. No, a lot of people will make tutorials online showing like different techniques or anything that they came up with or explain how they did it so that people can work together and enjoy kind of like other people's artwork. um and some people are really good at like recreating that kind of stuff, so it's not really a secret. Oh, let me just create a new material. We're going to go to it. We're going to add inside of the luminance panel tiles. Did I do it in that one or was it the reflectance? I think it was just in not transparency. This one here. Luminance. Whatever there. Yeah, that's fine. It's just add this to the bowling ball. And so you get your bounce going. Keyframe the position there. Move forward. Drop this down till it hits the ground. Keyframe that. And the F curve. I was like, why am I not seeing these keyframes? Move forward. Position. Alt drag. Whoop, wrong one. Alt drag this. If it's going to do it, control drag. Sorry. Not alt. And then let's loop this. Repeat. Okay. So we've got this bounce going. I'm not going to, well, yeah, let's go in here and update the curve. I cannot do it. Undo that. Shift. Let's break that. There we go. So we've got a bounce. Cool. Let's move it forward in time. Or in space. Sorry, not time. Move it there. It's going to bounce this whole time. Then it's going to move this way off screen. And then we keyframe that, right? Then we're looking at the X position here. Obviously, you would make it shorter and because this isn't showing the mass of it, but you can add the rotation. So let's see if we select this one, which rotation is it going to be? I believe it's going to be the X. Let's try this one. Nope, wrong one. It's going to be the Y. Bad guessing both times. Z. So, keyframe there. Probably by the time we're off screen. Let's try a full rotation. Keyframe that. And so then while it's bouncing, it's rotating as well, right? And then you'll just adjust the easing of the rotation. And if you want the rotation to be slower, right, you rotate it less, right? So if I wanted it slower, I could go 200 and then re-keyframe that. And then while it's bouncing, it's rotating slower. If I want it to go faster, I would increase the amount. So let me pause this, move that over, select this one. Let's put 500 degrees. So it just continuously rotates. It's going to go faster. And then it's rotating faster. Looks more like a basketball right now. But yeah, adding that rotation. When you start to stack animations together, it's adding more of like a visual interest, right? And you're starting to just add more to the realism of what happens with that object. And that's where, a lot of people are like, hey, when you start adding that stuff in, like when Melissa added the shake to the word mass, when that ball hit the ground, it sold that was even heavier than we thought it was, right? Because when it hit it, it shook things around it. And that's a great sign of the weight of something, right? If you drop something heavy, it's going to shake things in the area. So, starting to think about what's the cause and what are the effects of whatever kind of animation that's happening is going to make you better animators in the future. And this is anything, like, right, like even if we applied that theory to hand drawn animations, let's say we have a character that we're animating and he slips and he falls on the ground, and let's say it's a skinny character, right? And so they don't weigh that much, so they fall and they hit the ground and maybe things kind of just rattle a little bit on tables or whatever, like whatever he's around, maybe it moves a little bit. But then let's say we get this big character who, you know obese, and slips on something and hits the ground and things shake, we exaggerate it, things fall off the table. Maybe it makes a cat jump or something like that, right? Like maybe it makes other people around it bounce, right? Those things make animations better because it's like this chain effect, right? That happens when something else happens. So that is a principle of animation. Um Let me pull that one up here. I think I have the page up here too for you guys. Do you guys know in the chat which one it is? You guys can say it before I get to it. Which one on here? Which one on this list here of the 10? Even though there's 12, like he combined it, he shortened it down to be 10. So which one on here would that be, right? Like if you have um something that hits the ground and it shakes everything around here. Move my another way. If you guys need it bigger, I can make it bigger. Ooh, even harder because it stops the actual like give from playing. So which would be drum roll. It's your secondary or layered animation right here. Right? Other things happen. Note close. Note mass and weight is going to show right how heavy something is, but to add the animation, I can see why you said that because of the way I worded the question. But when everything else shakes around it, when that heavy ball hits, it's layering your animation. Right? There's a cause and effect that's happening there. That's the difference between secondary animation like follow through and overlap. This is causing other stuff to happen, right? So if I play this and you see it, when it hits the ground, it's causing this springing motion, which would be like a follow through or overlapping action, right? But when this rotates in the air and it does a flip, that's a secondary animation that's happening. It's not just going from one to the other and bouncing and then squashing and stretching and all that stuff. It's not just doing that, but there's like a flip happening at the same time, which is your secondary or layered animation onto that. All right, let me go to Keith.
Hi, so when I uploaded the video to Media Encoder, I noticed that the videos were a little shorter for some reason. I'm not too certain. That wasn't the problem. The problem was it feels like the video that I submitted was way more faster than I was looking at on C4D. I even rewatched the rendered version to see, and it just looks like it's a little more faster. And I'm not too certain if that's something that it just happens with Media Encoder, or if it's something I did to make it look a little faster. But that's my only question so far. Is it just I couldn't figure it out. I tried making a new one, and it looks like it's just going the same speed, but it looks a little more faster than the other one. And that's it. Thank you.
It could be your frame rate that's causing that issue. So what you'll want to do, Keith, is you're going to want to check your frame rate inside of Cinema 4D here. So what are the project ones? I think, is it Control Shift D? Control D? Project settings, Control D. You want to make sure that you're at 24 FPS here. And then also inside of your render settings, when you go to those, that you're also at 24 FPS there. And then also when you bring it into After Effects, you want to make sure that you're at 24 FPS on your composition as well. And then you can check your footage to make sure that it brought in at 24 FPS. And if it doesn't, then you can right click on that footage inside of your project panel and interpret it to be 24 FPS. So the frame rate matches across all of it. That's really the only reason I think that could be happening. Did you check all of those things, Keith? Let me know in the chat if that was the case with it, or if you checked those and it wasn't showing up right, and then we can like maybe jump on a quick call and investigate that further, and I can see like where in your project were you, if you were having issues or anything like that. But checking those like 4 places. Okay, so you did. You made sure that it was all that. Let me see. Let's see if it rendered out at that. Okay, yeah. Let me go to the downloads folder. Is yours in here, Keith? It should be. Yeah, let's see what the properties are of it. 24 FPS here, so you rendered it out appropriately. It could also be what render settings did, yeah. And then let me know what render settings you used inside of your media encoder. I wonder if that could be an issue too. Yeah, check the frame rate inside of Cinema 4D first. And then both inside of your project, right? So Control D to bring up the project settings. Check it here. And then also check it in your render settings here. And then let me know if you're still having issues there. I'll keep that in mind when I review your project too today. All right, we have Tristan.
Hello. So
What's up, Tristan?
I did the render settings, the render physical, like you said to do when I was watching the live stream, and I was just wondering, is it, because it's still rendering right now, is it always gonna take this long, or is this just like a thing on my end? Thank you.
So it just kind of depends on how beefy your computer is and how it's able to, render things out. It looks like when I'm playing this back and it's rendering things for one frame. Let's play this back again. Notice these little boxes that are kind of going around the image here.
Physical, like you said to do.
That
when
is
I was watching.
rendering. That's like those are the cores that you have, I believe, on your CPU. And the more cores you have, the more of these little boxes that come up while you're rendering. And so if you have 16 cores, you have 16 little boxes working at the same time to render that little section of the image out, right? And so that will make your computer move faster. It looks like there's only maybe two, possibly four cores that your computer um, has, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You just have to be like, okay, I have to account for the fact that my computer might take longer to render this out, right? And so and this wasn't a lot of animation. It really wasn't. Considering it was just like maybe three different, I mean, with the ball, it's the vertical, um, it's your Y axis that you're animating, your X axis, and then maybe a rotation. So you have three different parameters that are animating, really kind of 1.5 because your position is 1, right? Um and so I that's like just a little glimpse of how long it takes to render out certain animations that are like a lot of stuff happening in a scene. And so that's why it's so important, especially in your classes moving forward or in your projects moving forward, that you give you give yourselves ample amount of time to not only work, but then to render, right? Because I've had some renders inside of Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D is going to be the longest. Any 3D, right? Because you have to account for different different materials, all of the lighting, all of your reflections, any kind of animation that's happening, also any kind of like transparency that's happening within things. There's a lot of different factors that come into rendering a 3D scene versus rendering a 2D scene. There are some renders inside of After Effects that can take longer, but I've had renders inside of Cinema 4D take days. They have something called render farms, and these are um, big companies are going to use render farms. And basically what it is multiple computers, right, that they tell you're going to render out image 1 through 120, you're going to render out image 121 through 400, right? So there's, and you allocate different amount of rendering to each computer because there's massive, there's like mass amount of computers in there, and you can be like, hey, I need it done now. You can pay to render things out in a render farm, but it gets expensive very quickly because you're using like resources to do that, right? And so if you're going to be rendering something that is going to take days to render, then it's just better maybe to use a render farm or to use an alternate rendering system. um and so that's why we do a lot of our work inside of the viewport renderer or with basic materials, because a lot of the computers that the students work on might not be able to handle it as well. And you'll get more into the further you get into the courses and the different classes that you take in 3D, you'll learn how to render things out differently in there that might be more efficient based on whatever the project is, right? So, but yeah, I think you guys are like understanding how long not only it takes to animate, but then how long it takes to render things. And you're just like, oh my gosh, animation takes a long time. And so it gives you like an appreciation for the work that other people do. You're like, wow, a lot of work really went into that. Jasmine.
Hi, my question for this week has to do with After Effects with the project. When I added the echo effect, my ball went to a bright yellow when the color that I have it's like an orange color. Why would that happen? I don't know if I
So
can change.
nope, it doesn't have to do with that. Jasmine, what it is your operator, the echo operator there. So you want to change up from add to composite behind. And then when you do that, it will just have the ball, just each iteration of the echo is going to composite behind the last one. What this is doing right here is it's essentially changing the blend mode of the echo, right? It's operating in an add mode. So it's adding each color onto the next versus just staying the same color. So if you just go in there and change this right there to composite behind, it will be your normal color that you had it.
Color. Would that matter? Would let's see like a dark uh, green? It goes to a bright green.
Yeah, it just intensifies. You're all like,
Why?
I have no idea. I
So
see your
that's my
face.
question.
That's
Thank
funny.
you.
Yeah, good question though. All right, you guys. Questions are done for the week. Let me delete this. Let's go over your la, da, 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 da. Let's go over your projects. I'm going to close this out. No, let's not make changes to any of these here. Keith, you been playing more? You had time to play video games recently? How about anyone else in the chat? Anyone playing any video games you recommend me? I think I downloaded off of Xbox Live, Xbox, whatever it is, the Life of P, but I haven't been able to play it yet. But it's like a Pinocchio game. I don't know if you guys ever played. Here, let me show you this game. This game is freaking awesome, and it's an old school game, and I used to play it all the time. Yeah, I've been busy. I get that. But American McGee's Alice, uh, it's not Alice in Wonderland. It's American McGee's Alice. Is it that? It's just Alice. Yeah. I wanted to call it Malice, but this game is so fun. So I'm hoping that that one, The Life of P. Oh, so it's not like a. Oh, I'm not into the. I try to get into Dark Souls, but I get really frustrated with that game. It just makes me so mad when I die and I have to drop everything and then go back and get it. Like, I'm like, I hate this. It's such a game where you have to, it's like, you have to just grind so hard when you're in those games. The soundtrack is actual real music that they made themselves. I listen to Feel sometimes. That'd be the song name. Wait, so they made a custom, like they made a custom soundtrack to it? Usually they do. Maybe I'm interpreting your comment wrong. I haven't listened to any of the soundtrack. I've just seen like quick gameplay stuff online. So, but if it plays like Dark Souls, I might just skip that game. I like playing like story-driven adventure games. I thought it would be more like that, but maybe I didn't watch enough gameplay. Either way, I didn't pay for it. I got it on the Xbox Game Pass, so. Oh my gosh. Elden Ring was cool. I mean, I have Elden Ring, but I just am so bad at like cuz you it's like you can the hard thing is exploring, coming up to a boss that you can't beat yet because your level isn't high enough, and then he just keeps killing you. And I'm like, I want to go back and try and beat him still. And it's just like pointless for you to do. And so you have to go back and do more things, grind a little bit, increase your skills, and then go back. Oh, that's really cool. Nice. Yeah, I like when they put the soundtracks into forms that you can purchase. Yeah, I do like that. I do like vinyl. All right, I'm gonna jump into here and stop sidetracking us on video games because I'll talk about that all night. But Jades, let's go here. Good job on that, Jade. Yeah, good job overall. Looks pretty cool. The grainy look is normal, you guys. The let's repeat this. The only thing that I would do here, Jade, is just offset the jumps, the bounces, so that they're not all bouncing at the same time. And then I would also move the camera. You can adjust the camera to turn a little bit more so that this is more centered. You got a lot of space happening. I didn't want to zoom, but you got a lot of space happening like here and less here, right? About half the amount, maybe a little less than half. But you want this to kind of be, you want this whole area to really be as centered as possible. And so I would just shuffle this all this way a little bit, and then you won't have that issue. But this looks good. The let's watch the squashing and stretching happening. Yeah, good job on the squashing and stretching. You could probably exaggerate this little cell shaded ball a little bit more, but the carrot's pretty funny. Good job. Good job overall. This one looks good. The one thing I would say again is to change your framing of the shot so that you don't have so much room on this side right here, right? Because you got that much there and that much there. And that's a big thing, right? Centering our shots. You gotta think of the rule of thirds. If you're taking photography classes or design classes, that would be it. I would just, I mean, I want to see like them kind of come to a close. If the hammer scene is short, that's okay. Is it, do I have a specific way on the rubric? Did I say like a specific time on those? I didn't think I did. No, just like a certain amount of bounces. So they don't all have to be 5 seconds, just as long as we see like it come to a set, like everything settles on screen. Like I don't want to see it like animating still and then the scene cuts short. With these ones, um, there's the illusion, like obviously, like in the mask scene, that the light ball is going to continue bouncing while it's off screen, but it bounces off screen, right? So you can't really show the rest of what's happening off screen. Um, and so then once everything settles to a stop, have the video continue for another second, maybe, or beat or so, and then move to the next one. So really just however long it takes for the animation to complete. Um, as far as the rest of the mask scene goes, I think you could add one more little bounce there for the mask. And I think that would, and so that it doesn't look like it's skidding as much, because it kind of skids to a stop here, and you want it to kind of slowly roll to a stop. So what could happen, right, is the bouncing kind of stops, and then the ball continues to roll a little bit more. So how your keyframes would look on that, right? The X would stop short. Your, like, let's say your keyframes, your Y keyframes would be from here to here, but your X keyframe moving forward in space and your rotation would go beyond those keyframes, right? Because it's still moving forward and rolling a little bit. And then what would actually happen is the forward momentum would kind of stop, and then it would rock a little bit and then stop more, right? So if you're curious at how that looks, you guys have like a bouncy ball around the house, or a tennis ball, or just any kind of ball, just go and drop it on the floor and then watch what kind of happens with the ball while it's while it's bouncing and when it's done bouncing. Oh, stop. Siri, let me shut up. I'm gonna take my watch off. I keep getting emails and whatnot. All right. Let's continue to the next scene here. Good job on that impact scene. I'm gonna rewatch it again. I'm gonna focus on the heavy one real quick. Nice bounce off. That looks great. The ball itself, that one's not bad. I would also do the same thing with the rolling. Maybe I think right here would just be on the rotation keyframes, just looking at the graph, right? Adjusting your graph a little bit will make it so it doesn't kind of slide on the ground and it just rolls to a stop. Because you don't want it to roll like in sliding, right? You don't want that little short slide to happen. Overall, this scene is very centered, which is great. Let's see. Let's watch a light ball. Yeah, that one's good. That looks lighter. You can see kind of slowing down off screen here, but that's okay because it still is a lighter looking ball than the rest of them. Good job on the hammers. Look at that nice little swinging, stopping. Really good job. Great start on that, Jade. All right, Jasmine, I'll go over this one here when I'm done, but here's Lena's. Yeah, good job. That little roll at the end, cool. Ooh, neat materials here. Nice. Great job on this, Lena. Let's rewatch it. Let's go ahead and hit that. No, I don't want to go ahead 30 seconds. Go back. Oh, come on now. Let's rewatch. Looking awesome here. I think with this first bound, with the mask, the ping pong ball looks great. The roll there at the end, perfection. That was great. Look how it like slowly comes to a nice slowing, stopping roll kind of there. But you want the rotation to be happening when the ball bounces too. So you're going to have to move that first rotation keyframe backwards to start like either after it bounces. That would be the perfect time to start the rotation right after the first bounce, right? Because you drop the ball on the ground and it's straight down, but as soon as it hits the ground, it's going to want to bounce off into a direction, whatever direction that may be. In this case, it's moving forwards. So you bounce it, and then after that first bounce is when the rotation is going to start. So you might just want to nudge that keyframe over a little bit. And then also with the position value, because it would also, right after that first bounce, it's going to want to move forward as well. So just adjust those, the rotation and the X position keyframes, and you'll be good there. The impact one looks great. I love the materials that you opted to use. They just look really very coordinated, very clean. I would maybe opt to keep the hammers the same material as the bar, but not a requirement. I'm just saying visually. I actually like this one a little bit more because it stands out with the rest of the materials. But if you want to keep it like this because you like it, you guys can disagree with my like my suggestions for it. There's things that I'm going to tell you to do because it's gonna it's going to improve the animation, right? And then there's things that I'm going to give you as optional changes. This is an optional change, right? If you like it the way it is, you keep it that way. But this is really neat material on that ball too. Let's focus on the heavy impact in the back. Let's replay that. Oh, get out of here. Oh, is there just there's a blank frame right there. So you want to just butt up those sequences with each other too. Not bad here. I think that when this one hits, it can swing down a little bit faster. No, I mean, that's okay. I think it settles at a really nice rate. Let's watch the ball, the heavy impact ball. Great roll on that. That rotation looks, good job on your keyframes and the easing working on that graph looks great. Let's focus on this hammer and the light hammer and ball. Yeah, that one looks nice too. The hammer looks great. No changes there. Follows through nicely. That ball, yeah, awesome. I would say no changes for the light ball or the light hammer either. And then this one's awfully fun. I think this looks like the background. In fact, Nikara, he showed me one. I don't know if you guys got to see it, but for his real and surreal, his surreal scene had like dinosaurs in it and then a lava background. Looked really cool. Let's watch this. We're gonna start. I'm gonna keep an eye on the cell shaded one and then the dice. They look great. The synced up as far as like when this is going down, it looks like an egg kind of upright, and then when it's going back up, it's got that nice little shoot up. Same with the pumpkin. The pumpkin really does well with this this project. And then the dice also great job in all directions with the squashing. No changes on that scene. This looks good. Everything's like offset a little bit, which makes it visually more interesting as well. No, you don't have to. When I replayed it back, I think that the heavy hammer looks just fine. It falls at a decent. If you want it to look a little bit more dramatic, then have it drop faster, but I think it's okay. You don't have to change it. The biggest thing I would change here is like that blank frame here. Just get that out and then you'll be fine. All right, Josh, let's go to yours. All right. I think this is probably the same issue that you're running into, right, Keith? Because this is playing really fast. So I think you have something going on with your keyframes here, Josh. Also, you've picked materials that aren't going to work with the physical render or whatever render setting you're doing. So that's the first thing I would do is opt to pick a material that works with this, your render settings. The other thing that's happening, very weird here, and it might be because you're working in the viewport render, which I think is the case. So if you can do the physical render, I would do that. With the viewport render, whatever material that you pick for your hammers and the bar just don't work. So you're going to want to change that. The other thing you're going to want to do here is change we need to have like the tiling changed on the floor because it's just blurry. It doesn't look, good. It's not in high definition. And then we need to center, you need to change the camera. I don't know if you adjusted the camera, or you can just increase the size. That's probably what happened is the text, right? So if you increase the tracking on the text or just move the text over this way a little bit more so that we have about even space here and here, right? I would do that. And then let's watch the animation itself again. Let me focus on that. Let's see this again. You flipped yours, so we've got the heavy hammer in the front. Let's watch the heavy hammer hit the heavy ball. All right, not bad. I think that it would be easier for me to see if there wasn't a frame rate issue here. Same with the light one. As far as what I can see so far, it looks like the light hammer swings and it follows through and it hits it just fine. But I just need to see it in the appropriate frame rate so that I can really judge if the keyframing is correct. But it looks like the animation is pretty much there. This one, this ball here, I don't know if you're rotating this. Certain materials are not going to look like they're rotating, right? Like, for instance, glass, high reflectance materials, and materials without some kind of like pattern on it. I do not think these roll though, because it looks like the materials have like the speckled pattern in it. And when I play it, they don't move at all. So that might be, that's going to be a consideration as well, as let's change the pattern of the balls on here and, or add the rotation in. I mean, you have to add the rotation in anyways. So, and if you do have the rotation, then it's the material you want to change out. As far as the bouncing goes, same thing applies to the floor. And then I'm not sure what's going on with your shadows. But if you're using the viewport render, if you want to, let's look at your settings together so we can get this looking nice and sharp and everything. I'll say okay on this, like the distance is okay. Let's change the word from bounce to mass or weight. So we want it to say weight or mass, not bounce. We're not, yeah, this one is, you're showing the weight or mass scene. You have this, you followed the online, ones from last semester, so that's fine, right? Because you got this in here, this one in here, which is like the squashing and stretching tune one. But, let's just change that word here. Let me go back. Let's watch the animations. We're going to watch the light ball first. All right, not terrible right here. Look, there's like a swooping action that happens with that light ball there. So you need to check your graph, right? Because it should look like a bounce each time. And I think what happens is you got one that kind of goes like that. So you've got it and it does that. Like an S. And we don't want that. We want like McDonald's M's all the way across. As far as the heavy ball goes, same thing. We need to adjust the curves on this, and then where because it's moving in X space, right? It's moving forward after it's done bouncing, and it's moving way too far. It needs to be moving forward after the first bounce, or right when the first bounce hits, or even at the beginning. I think it'd be so fast that you wouldn't really see it, but like you need to adjust your X keyframes on this. And then as far as your cell shaded bounce goes, that doesn't look too bad, but you need to add the like the tapering effect into there, where like that center, it's called center on the actual deformer, and you want to animate the center so it kind of tapers the ball in. So when it's bouncing down, a majority of the weight of the ball is towards the bottom. It's going to hit the ground, and then on its way up, the weight of the ball is going to be at the top because it's like projecting itself up, right? And so you're going to want to redo that one, or just add that in, right? You don't have to redo the rest of it, but just adding that in would be nice. And then we need to add another bounce on the squash and stretch here. And then when you're squashing, right, you're only going in one direction this way, but you're missing the third dimension, right? So you have to make sure that your update this squashing so that when you're adding to one coordinate, right? You're adding value to one coordinate, you're deducting that from the other two coordinates. Because right now you're just deducting it from the one coordinate or adding it to the one coordinate and not the other one. And then if you're going to render this inside of the viewport renderer, you want to make sure that all of these lines, this is called your wireframing, we want to make sure that's all gone. So you got to go into your you've got to go into your render settings and click geometry only. So that's the biggest thing with this one, right? Adjusting that, making sure you have 3 bounces at least of the dice, and then updating the render settings. All right, good start there. Natalie, let's go through yours. Cool. Neat. Per word, randomizing it. That was cool. This was not a requirement, but Natalie, I mean, that's fine. This looks cool. I like how you introduced it. Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Killer job on this one, Natalie. Let's go through your scenes. I really like that. The end, obviously, with the mask, but let's go through the impact scene first. So we have the light ball in the front and the heavy one in the back. Boom. I think that the heavy hammer looks good, but it actually ricochets. It doesn't actually hit the heavy ball. So you want to make sure that remember what I had to do in classes, just adjust the curves a little bit. If I just messed around with the shape of the curve, it would change where the hammer would hit the ball. So you want to make sure that that hammer actually makes contact with the ball, so when it boom, it does ricochet off. And then the ball itself looks great the way it's like rolling to a stop. Looks like a nice heavy ball. And as far as the light ball, that one looks great. Hits it, goes all the way through, and that ball like quickly rolls off screen and is rotating. That looks great. The light one, the light impact, awesome. The heavy impact, just make sure that that hammer hits the ball there. Good scene though. Really good start to this scene. The squash and stretches is super fun. Also with the pumpkin. That is the reflection. So notice that the material is not only reflecting the color of the ball in the front face of the word H, right? But also it's reflecting the highlight of the edge of the pumpkin as it squashes on the ground. I will say this, that if I go into our Slack channel, what did Belle post the other day? Belle posted a video that helped using the squash and stretch deforming for something that squashes on the ground. So like adjusting the different parameters of the deformer to make it look like it squashes more on the ground. So this might be a helpful video to watch. I haven't had a second to watch it yet. But this might be helpful for those of you using like the pumpkin, and for those of you at an angle that's like more front facing, right? Because this camera angle on the squash and stretch scene is like, it's not up high. It's like brought down more to almost close to like eye level. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that choice. It just allows us to see where that like deform bender is, or that bend deform, the squash and stretch deformer. I'm sorry, using the wrong words, but where that one that issue lies, right? Something to think about. Maybe you guys will want to watch that video. But as far as the dice goes, the dice looks awesome. So does the cell shaded ball as well. Really good job on these. The mass one looks great. The ping pong ball looks awesome. I see you've got the nice. That's a great bounce for the ping pong ball. Let's look at the moon. Awesome. I love it. I think you could slow down maybe the X position Um, let's watch it again. Because it kind of speeds up there. So maybe just adjust the curve of the X position so that that the forward positioning parameter doesn't speed up at the end. That it's like actually slowing down, but it looks really good. And then as far as the mass, the word bouncing, I would just adjust the keyframes because at one point it looks like it, because as you progressively go down the bounce, right, each bounce gets shorter in height. Um, and at a certain point on the bounce of the word mass, it like goes up higher than the previous time. So it goes boom, boom, boom. I think like right around there, this section here, it just goes up. So I would just double check those keyframes there. But this looks really nice. Good job on the project overall. Really, really good start on that. Just a couple edits here. You guys are doing good. All right, Tristan. The tomato. This reminds me of Veggie Tales. I don't know why. I think it's a color combo. But this is great. Okay. Let's continue watching through them and then I'll break them down one at a time. Fun. Cool, good job. Nice. Great job overall in this, Tristan. The first scene, the dice looks fun. Let's rewatch this one. You've got a little bit of a hitch going on the dice. Like, let's see. Boom, hits. It has to do with the squashing and stretching where it is because it's like squashing right there when it's going up, and you don't want that to happen. The squashing should only happen when it hits the ground. This section should all be stretching. So you got just an extra keyframe there. So if you just find that keyframe and delete that one on the dice, you'll be fine. And the cell shaded egg looks great, or the egg, it's not cell shaded, but that's just what I call it. The squash and stretch deformer on the egg looks awesome. The let's see. So your deformer is working really well on this white ball, right? It looks like a little egg. But when you've got the tomato in here, the it only squashes, right? It's not squashing when it's hitting the ground, so you're going to want to adjust that so that it's the timing of the squash is in correlation with the impact that it has on the ground, right? So you're going to need to adjust the location of those keyframes. And then you also want to make sure that it's squashing in all directions here. That it, not only squashes this way, but it equally squashes out on your X and Y plane as well. And it's not just stretching in one direction here. So if you fix that, it'll be great. And then, because then what happens, it looks like and if all you got to do is rewatch that section of the class where we just take the squash and stretch deformer from this ball and we just move it and line everything up, and then we hide this ball, and then the parameters of the squash and stretch deformer actually go onto this one. So I would just rewatch that section real quick because that part takes like 2 seconds to do. And then you'll be golden, because if you have the same kind of parameters of your squash and stretch deformer that you do on this ball on the tomato, you won't have a problem at all. You'll do just fine. The mass scene, let's watch that. Great job on the ping pong ball. I would again update your angle so that we update your camera, right? So that we have the same amount of space on this side and this side, right? Because right now there's too much space on this side. You just rotate your camera over a little bit and you'll get that angle right. And then the ping pong ball looks great. Great job on the ping pong ball. And then also on the heavy ball, let's watch that one. Yeah, not bad. I think that you could add a couple more small bounces to that heavy ball. Right now, I think it hits maybe twice and then stops. But I think if you add like maybe two more bounces in there, that it'll sell it a lot more. It'll look um like a normal bounce because right now it just kind of stops too quickly. But really good start on that scene. Cool materials on this one. Let's slow this down. Here, let's focus on the heavy impact. Not bad on that one. I think the same issue here is that the hammer doesn't actually hit the ball, right? So you got to make sure you're just adjusting the curve of the hammer there so that it hits the ball and then the ball moves forward. And then as far as the roll of the heavy ball, that looks really nice. You did a great job on that. The rotation, the forward momentum, really good job. And then finally here on the light one, let's watch the hammer first. Great job on the hammer. I think that it went all the way through. Sorry, guys, about flashing back and forth on that. Followed through nicely. And then I also think that the ball rolling, the light ball looks great too. Good job. Yeah, good job overall on that. You just need to update that hammer so that it makes contact. Great start on that, Tristan. All right, we have Melissa. Do we have any questions right now in the chat, you guys, on how to do anything like this? On any of the feedback that you guys have heard on all the other work and stuff? Ooh, good job on that. All right, Melissa, good start on this. Let's kind of go from one scene to the next. We're going to start on this impact scene. So nice. They swing up. And then let's focus on the visuals first, right? Let's go ahead and with this material on the floor, increase the first decrease the tiling so it's a little bit smaller. And then let's increase the settings for the sharpness of the photo as well. And then let's focus on this heavy hammer. Nice. Really nice job on that ricochet off that heavy ball. Ready? Hammer's going to hit. Hold on, let's... Boom. Nice ricochet off of that. Slowing down into the stop. You might want to just adjust the rotation, like the graph on this one, so that it doesn't kind of just jolt into a stop, that it's nice and smooth. Let's rewatch that section. Yeah, because it kind of speeds up for a second and then swings down. You can just increase the, right, just make sure that the distance between the keyframes are very similar. And then just that the curve doesn't go above the next one, right? That the height of each one is less and less as you go further down the swing. And then let me watch the ball. I see you've got like a slow pulling out. The ball looks good, not too bad. It kind of slides there at the end, so you might want to check your the graph on that one. And then the light ball, let's watch that. Hits it, swings through. Nice. Great job on the light ball. No changes on that one. Cool. So your ping pong ball needs to bounce faster. It's going too high. It's kind of like floating through the air. So I think you need to just adjust your curves on that one. Might be the case. And then as far as the heavy ball goes, boom, boom, boom. That's not bad. It kind of scoots at the end. And I think the problem there is the material of the heavy ball is real shiny. So it's obviously going to be hard to, and it's very smooth. So there's not texture on it to see it turn, which is fine. But then what you need to do is you need to shorten the distance that it moves forward, or just take those forward moving keyframes and tighten it up to the Y keyframes that you have. And then as far as like the overall scene, you definitely need to I know you're pulling out here, but like you're dollying out, right? But you need to center this so that we can see everything. You're probably going to have to pull out of the shot a little bit more. And then for the squashing and stretching here with the deformer, swings up, looks good, gets to the top. You got a little bit of the overshoot there. I know I taught that in one of the other classes. Yeah, this one looks good. Good job on these ones. And then for the squash, let's watch this one. You've got a little bit of an issue going on with the dice here. I would just watch where this, so it's going to go down. Should hit the ground and squash. It's going to stretch back up. You've got a little bit of squashing happening here. That maybe I would just adjust to not be so drastic. I think it's just the overshooting of the curve, right? You're just overshooting the curve a little bit. And then this next bounce is shorter than the first one. And for this one, we want to see, I think it bounces 3 times. 1, 2, 3, not a problem. But on that third bounce, it like bounces higher. So you just want to make sure they're all bouncing at the same height. But other than that, really good start on this one as well, Melissa. All right, we've got Jesus. Wow, yeah, nice job on that last scene there. Okay, let's break down the squash scene with the die. I would, yeah, this looks good overall so far. Let's play it. The issue with the dice here is that it stops at the top, and we don't want it to fully stop there. I think that it's like, you know, it's fully coming to a stop at the top, and you don't want that to happen. It needs to be like a consistent bounce. So you might want to look at your keyframes there. And the only spot that it should kind of stop and stick is on the ground. So your graph might be flipped, right? Lena says she has a question. Later, if you have time, could you demonstrate how to start the rotation and X position right after the first bounce? I still have trouble understanding where to put the keyframes. Yes, I will. Let me go through the rest of these, and then we'll talk on that, and I'll show you how to do that. But yeah, that's what I would fix on this. The like squashing and stretching looks nice. It's very gelatinous looking on this, Jesus, but you just need to work on the bounce of the die. Good start on this though. Yeah, awesome job on the impact scene. Let's watch that heavy hammer swing down first. Oh yeah, beautiful. Great job having that hammer ricochet off the heavy ball. And it comes to a nice slow stop there. Same with the ball rotation. Really good job rotating and having that ball come to a nice slow stop. I've got like a gnat or a mosquito in the room, and it keeps biting me. And I cannot get this sucker. The death of them all. If mosquitoes went extinct, I would not be upset. I don't know how it would impact the environment, but honestly, I don't care. And then let's look at the light ball here, or the light hammer. Swinging through. Yeah, really good job on this scene, Jesus. The only thing I would change here is the tiling of the floor to make it look smaller. Other than that, yeah, and then I know you talked about the materials. I would, you know, just mess around with that plastic material. But I think you're rendering in the viewport render, so it's only going to do so much. Good job on the ping pong ball. I would just have this second thing, also the tiling on the floor. Let's talk about the design real quick first. Tiling on the floor, decrease it so it's smaller, makes the scene look bigger. When this ball goes forward, you want to bring that X position all the way off screen. So this ping pong ball is really just kind of bouncing off screen all the way and not just stopping there. So I would continue that because the bounce is it's like cut off short, and you don't want that. You want it to just continue bouncing off screen. Because now it's going to stop right there, and that doesn't make sense with how a real ping pong ball would bounce from off screen. But a good start on that, right? And then this heavy ball looks pretty good. Let's replay that. not terrible. I think that the ending rotation and forward momentum is perfect. I think you nailed that. The only thing you need to do is work on the curves and the height of that bounce, right? And then you need to have the X position changing as well during the same time so that it's like moving forward and bouncing and not just bouncing in place and then moving forward. You don't want that. And then as far as the cell shaded cartoony ball goes, that one looks great. Real cartoony looking, gelatinous. Let me see how many bounces you got in here on 2, 3. You got plenty on there. Yeah, looked pretty good. A few changes, but not a ton there. Good job overall. All right, now we have Keith. All right, Keith, good start on this. I know we were talking about the keyframes possibly, or I'm sorry, the frame rate possibly being off somewhere. So we won't discuss that. I think that the ball, in the first scene, the light ball, the ping pong ball, looks really good, right? It's continuing off screen. It's continuing to bounce. Let's look at the heavy ball. Not bad there. I think the only thing I would do is it has to do with your curves. Right now it's going to hit. I think this one, the first bounce that it makes, right, hits the ground and then it bounces up to a certain height. You need to add like one more bounce in between this one and the next one to add a little bit more height to that one. You need, or just increase the height of this one bounce, because it just shortens a little bit too quick and it makes it look a little choppy. And then it comes to a stop rather quickly. So I'd add maybe another bounce in there to let it kind of come to a natural stop and not just like a halting stop, right? And then the only other thing I would do on this one is maybe just pull out of the scene a little bit, just slightly, not a ton. Or what you could do is you can make the text smaller and move it back a little bit so that it just gives us, it's a little bit of like too tight of a camera angle. And, or, right? Or there's another option is you can add a material with a pattern to the floor. And if you do that, and make the tiling of that pattern small, it's going to sell that this is like large objects in a smaller space, right? But if you don't want to do that, I would just pull the camera out a little bit more. Let's check the impact scene. Looks nice. Let's check this heavy hammer. Swinging and it hits there. You're just missing the ricochet off of it. Oh no, you got it on there. Let me see. Swing, ricochets off. I would just make sure that the first swing, when it ricochets off, that your curve looks like a nice hard bounce. The rolling on the heavy ball looks pretty good. Boom, nice. I would just adjust the curve a little bit so it comes to a nice smoother, like a little bit of a smoother stop. And then let's look at the light ball. The light hammer looks great. I think that comes to a beautiful stop as far as like the timing of that pendulum swing. Great job on that. And then the ball itself, off screen at just the right time. Most people have the harder time with the heavier impact of the hammer hitting the heavy ball, just because it has that ricochet in it, which throws your like pendulum swing off a little bit. So don't feel bad, you guys did a really good job on these. And then the squash and stretching of the cartoon ball looks nice. I would just remove the wireframe of this, and then you're going to want to move these dice over more, so that they're kind of more equally centered in the screen and not shifted off to, because right now this one's centered, which is fine, but since you only have 2 on here, I would just shuffle these over so there's kind of like the space in between, and the one the one ball is here and then the dice is like here, right? And then there's not just kind of all this blank space over here where nothing's happening. But as far as the squashing and stretching of like this cartoony ball goes, that looks fantastic. And then with the die, let's watch that one. Okay. Swing it down. Stretches really nice. Yeah, really good job on that. I would just offset the jumps, the bounces, so they're not bouncing at the same time. That's the only thing other than the shuffling them like over a little bit more and removing that wireframe from it. Those are the 3 edits that I would make. Wireframe, shuffling them over, and then just offsetting the bounces. But other than that, really good. You guys did a really good job on this project. All right, Jasmine's, we're going to take a look at Jasmine's project for the After Effects one, the motion design in After Effects. Oh, you kept the wireframe to match with the background and the dice. So with the die, all you got to do is this inside of Cinema 4D. Let me open it up. The wireframe, so the wireframing of the die is just on there all the time. You can't really take that off for now. It's there in the viewport render. And so what if you're rendering through the viewport renderer though, you have to make sure that you select to render without the wireframe in there, and then it won't render it on the die either. So if I go into this one, it's opening off screen. Click on geometry only so that it won't render out any of the rest of these. And then if I go to save this, let's say save one to my desktop, or maybe I should just render it out to where it needs to go. Save that. I always put with alpha channel, PNG is fine. Output, let's just do 1 frame, current frame, so that it doesn't take a long time. And I am going to close that and render that out. Why you do this? Did you do the same thing and it show up for you? Like this? Should just be the geometry on it. Did you have the same issue? I wonder if it's a file. I might have to look into that. If anyone else ran into that same issue. So then instead of here, right, it should be, it's going to have the wireframes on it. I don't know why it did that. Yeah, it has a wireframe here. Let's figure it out. Let's delete that. Go back here. You or hit N A. All right, let's go into the settings. Viewport render. Geometry only. Output, current frame. Save to that spot. There we go. So, if that is an issue for you, guys, right? If you're rendering this still and you hit geometry only and you're still getting that, what you need to do is you need to change the viewport view, right? The way it is. So, if you hit N as in Nancy on your keyboard and don't move your mouse, right? But you're going to get a plethora. Right now I can move my mouse because I zoomed in using the notation thing. But if you move your mouse after you hit N, this goes away. So you have to hit N, and you can read through this. And you had the garage shading without lines, with lines, right? And the with lines shows us the wireframe, right? But we want it without that for just the render. And so if you just hit, so if it's NB is what it's normally with, it shows a wireframe. If you just hit N and then A, it'll take that away, and then you can render it out and it won't have all those lines, but you still have to make sure that you're selecting geometry only under the filter and not rendering it with those lines showing. And then under viewport render, under basics, you can show like you can mark your transparency on and off if you want it to have transparency in the thing, and then shadows, reflections. So these will, if you mark these off, right, if you turn them off, they're gonna decrease the time that your render happens, but it's not gonna look as good. So you want to make sure you still have all those on as well. But that should fix it for you, Keith. Let me close this out, and then we're gonna look at Jasmine's real quick. All right, Jasmine's motion design principles. Cool. Yeah, good job here. Overall, the consistency of the color palette throughout looks great. This bouncing ball here, the heavy one looks good. The light ball, you need to add more bounces to it because it just kind of stops there, and you don't want that to just suddenly stop. You got to have it bounce until it slowly bounces, right? And so you're going to have to add probably 2-3 more bounces onto that to kind of get it down to the ground. But the heavy ball looks really nice. Yeah, great job on the heavy ball, and then just update that light bounce. And then here for the impact, let's watch the projectile hit the heavy ball up here. Nice. That looks great. You've got really good overshoot, or you have good anticipation happening at first. The ball kind of pulls back and then swings forward to go hit that heavy ball. And then you've got a good job on the echo effect there, and then great job on the rolling of like that ball, the heavy ball moving. And then as far as the hammer, the swinging like hammer to hit the ball, that looks great. That ball goes flying off the screen. You've got the echo effect on the ball too. You'll just have to change these to, which we talked about in your question, to composite behind and not to add. But the echo effect on the hammer looks really good. Really nice job. And then the only thing I would say on the hammer is you've got like it kind of, the hammer comes to a stop here and then still moves. So you're going to need to check your keyframes on that hammer. The squashing and stretching on this ball looks really good. On this ball right here, it's a great start on it, but you kind of want this to be flat, right? Because it's going to hit the ground, and the ground should be flat unless it's bouncing on something and it's not. So I would just flatten this ground section out. Let's see. Yeah, this part right here, I would flatten that out. But good job on this. Nice and squishy there. That one looks really stretchy. Yeah, really good start on that overall. Let me see. You had the appropriate amount of bounces. Let me count on that one. I think you did. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, good job on that. You might want to check your graph for the bounces too. That they're like boom, boom, hitting. I think they... Yeah, they accelerate towards the ground and decelerate on back up into the air. Really good start on that, Jasmine. Just a couple little changes. All right, and so I'm not going to have time to go over the project for like our next project, right? So on Thursday, I'm late, I haven't forgotten. I'm going to show you that demonstration real quick. But on Thursday, when we start class, we are going to be doing this project right here. Let me bring it up for you guys. I'm going to leave this view. And I'm going to be posting this project here. So we're going to be talking about hierarchies, which is, let me move my camera out of the way real quick. I have to be conscious of that. So we're going to be talking about hierarchies within animation and rigging up an object. We're going to first, we're going to kind of go through step by step. And the first thing I'm going to teach you guys to do is how to illustrate the robot arm inside of Illustrator, and then also how to animate it, right? But we're going to be doing some rigging here, right? Because um, there's connections that happen, and there's certain things that should move at the same time as others. So if you guys want to get a head start on this project, you can go ahead and do that. The thing that I'm going to change is the entire, essentially, scene. It's still going to have robotic arms, but I think I want to do something more less simplified and a little bit more intense. We're already in the 5th week of class, and I think that you guys are doing well enough that we can start adding in additional animations to a whole scene. Like, let's start building a scene and not just like one small thing happening in the like scene itself, right? Let's have multiple animations happening at the same time. And so I think what I'm gonna build is some kind of um, conveyor belt scene where an object is moving along the belt. It's going to stop. The robot arm is going to do something to it, and then it's going to go to the next thing. Something else is going to happen. Maybe there might be like 2 things happening, or maybe what's happening is the conveyor belt's just moving. It's doing one thing to the object, and then that object moves forward, and then the conveyor belt moves another thing, and then, so you can make it like a loop. And so on Thursday, we're going to illustrate that. And then on the following Tuesday, we're going to start animating it. So this project is going to take a little bit longer. And if you follow along with the live stream, you can do the entire thing for extra credit because it's going to be more animating involved in it, and that one will be worth 200 points, right? But if you start ahead of time and just do this project the way it is here, like if you're online and you're just doing this one, this will be the same thing, worth 100 points. So you're not going to get docked points if you do this one. You'll just get extra points if you follow along in class and we do like a bigger scene, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and publish this for you guys in a little bit. I'll send out an announcement again, kind of talking about that. I'll try and do that tonight. If not tonight, I will do that tomorrow. And yeah, so it's going to take a little bit longer. It might also push another assignment out of the way, but that's okay, because I want you guys to start thinking in like a bigger, more grandiose scene, like a completed scene, and not just little sections of the animations, because soon we're going to start adding more. We're going to add multiple scenes together to create kind of like a storyline of something, right? And then it's going to help you guys to build those further into your portfolio. So this project is going to change a little bit. But if you stick to the one that's already online, I'm not going to dock you for it. I will grade it based off of what is on the module. But then if you do the one along with class, you have the opportunity to get 100 more points, which is even better, right? Extra points is great. And then let me see here. Lena, let's talk about what one was that on that we were talking about? That was it the mass scene? It had to have been. Let's go to this one, 3D, Cinema 4D files. Wait. Okay. Let's increase the size of this. And so we're going to create. Hi, Minerva. Hi, little one. Okay, I'm going to shut my camera off so you guys can see like the whole screen here. And let's get another material on here. So we can see kind of the rotation of fabric. Ah, of course it would show me that. These are all going to be, we don't need liquid. I wonder why these are all. Why are they all redshift? This was not an issue before, was it? Okay, let's type in here stone. Let's see if we get other options. Yeah, we get other options here. Let's just drop this one on to the ball so we can see the rotation. Okay, and I'll minimize that. We're going to grab the bowling ball. And I want to see here, we're going to bring the playhead back. Make this bigger. And we are going to keyframe the Y. We're going to move forward. We're going to bring that down to the ground. There. Keyframe that. Move forward. Copy. Well, we're not going to copy it because it's a heavy bounce rate. So we're going to bring it back up a little bit. Keyframe that. Bring this one down. This one is going to be the same. Let's shut this. How do I not view those? Okay, the Y position here. Up, down. We want this Y position, the ground one. So let's select that. Control drag, right? Because it's going to hit the ground in the same spot. We're going to move here. We'll click this one and control drag it, but we're going to change the value down more. Maybe not so. Probably like right there. We got to click on the ball to lock that in. Record. Move it forward. We're going to grab these two. Control drag. Right, and then we'll move this one. Is going to be down further. Keyframe it. Move ahead. These two. Control it dragging. Oop, move those over. This one is going to be even shorter. Probably try and add one more bounce in there. Lock that in. Bring this one here. Control it dragging. It's gonna boom, up, boom, down. Let's delete this last keyframe. All right, so, all right. Could look heavier. Minerva, stop. Leave me alone. Yeah, so the entire column, what it's doing is essentially if you drop this all down, right? Because it does that. Like if you select the folder, it's going to select the position for everything. And so what you can do is you can just drop this little folder, like unfurl it. And then specifically it shows, right? These are color coded too. So if I had an X position on here, it would show this would be red for X and blue for Z. But because we're working with Y, it's green. And that way you can just grab one at a time there. And these are the actual keyframe position, like the position keyframes. And that way you're grabbing one and you're not coming up here and grabbing a bunch, because I know that is the hardest part about animating inside of Cinema 4D is you're like, well, all these keyframes are on top of each other, so which one is which? And even when I hide this, it still seems to show these keyframes here. What does this do? No, you don't want to have that on. We don't want to remove that from layer, but you just still see these ones. So unfurling these little folders and then clicking on them individually will help. And then let's jump into here, and then we're going to grab all of these bottom ones. Well, let's just do this one at a time because it's going to be, and turn these into bounces, right? This one. This one. Oh, holding down shift just a little bit. This one's going to be very, very small. Let's zoom into this one right here a little bit so we can see this one right here. Holding down shift, it's going to be very small. This one, I don't even think I'd worry about. I would just probably drop this down. I would delete that keyframe and bring this one in holding down shift, right? So that it's just kind of, right? And then let's shorten this. So let's go into here. We're going to select all of these, and then we're going to bring this in so that it's faster. And this one kind of hangs a lot longer than I want, so I'm going to shorten these ones up. Grabbing these. Oh, didn't mean to do that. I'm going to shorten these ones up, because these bounces are going to get shorter and shorter. In fact, I could probably grab these ones, shorten them up like this. These ones, bring them in a little bit. Bring these ones in a little bit. You don't want more space in between. There we go. That looks pretty good. Nice. Okay. And then let's go ahead and add the X and the rotation, right? The X position. So when I said after the first bounce, right, it's going to drop, it's going to hit there, and then here is where your rotation and your forward position is going to happen. So let me grab the bowling ball and let's keyframe the X position, and then we're going to move ahead, and it's going to kind of roll a little forward, probably for a little bit of time afterwards. So let's move it not too far, right, because it's heavy, and let's keyframe that. And so if we watch this, it kind of starts moving. It starts moving after that first bounce as it starts moving forward. Let me drag this out a little longer so it stays, it kind of slowly. Or let's shorten that up. Not bad there. And then, so this is what I mean by after the first bounce. Like after it hits the ground, this is where you want the rotation and the rotation and the forward momentums to start happening. The forward momentum, not a big deal. It can start back here at the beginning, but I was just thinking like after, when you drop a ball, right, it's not moving forward right away. But it doesn't look terrible there because it's happening multiple things, but it just looks a little bit better after it hits the ground, that it starts to bounce in a different direction, because that's what would change the trajectory of the bounce, right, is coming into contact or something impacting it, right? And so the ground would impact it because it's not going to hit at a perfect straight up and down angle. It's going to, or you're going to drop it and it's going to move forward based on how you drop it. And then let's add that rotation in there. So I'm going to select this, and I think it's this rotation here. Perfect. Let's start that there. And let's move this rotation a little bit even after this, and let's not rotate it very much at all. Maybe let's try 90 degrees, like it rotates 90. And then, oh, don't forget to lock that in. Let's move back here. There you go. And, right, and obviously you're going to want to update the easing on these. So let's go here. Wrong one, right there. Here, I think is the problem. When you adjust the timing, you're going to have to adjust the angles of these as well. Just so you guys are aware. When you start adjusting those, the timing of them. Let's zoom into this more. Let's bring this up here. There we go. That's going to look a lot better. Nice. Okay, so we got a nice heavy bounce happening. And yeah, don't forget to do that for when you guys adjust the timing and shorten that up. It's going to affect your curves. And then with the X position, let's hit H on the keyboard to bring that in. And we want it to be slowing down when it's starting to go, when it's moving forward, right? Because it's going to start faster and then lose that momentum. So our curve's going to look like this. Maybe not so dramatic, maybe just kind of like this. There we go. And then let's also do the rotation, right? Hit H to bring that up on here. Same with the rotation. It's going to be probably like this. It's going to slowly rotate towards the end. There we go. And so that's just what I meant by starting your rotation in the X position keyframes after the first bounce. Does that make more sense? So my rotation keyframe happens a little bit after. It's like offsetting the, here, let me hit H here again. So here's my X position, starts at the beginning. I'm sorry, the Y position, which starts at the beginning and goes to only 40 frames. But then once that ball hits the ground, the forward trajectory is going to change. It's going to start moving forward. And so that's why I started the X position here. Yeah, not a problem. So that's why I started the X position here. And then it's going to kind of like when you have a heavy ball, it's going to stop bouncing, but it's going to continue moving forward a little bit. And so that's why I have this X keyframe, this last one, moving beyond where the bounce happens, right? Because it's still kind of rolling forward a little bit. And so knowing that it's continuing to roll forward, you're going to want to kind of match up the rotation with the X position, because those are the two things that are continuing after it stops bouncing vertically in the air. And then what I did is I just offset this rotation so that it slowly, because like things when they kind of stop, they slowly rotate. So it's kind of like a sequencing of how the ball moves, right? The first thing that's going to happen is a vertical bounce. That's going to be the first thing that stops. The next thing that's going to happen is the rotation and the forward trajectory. And that forward trajectory is going to stop first, and then that rotation is going to stop very closely after that. And so it's just sequencing that. If you didn't sequence this last rotation one and had it here, it might not even be a visual difference when you play it. It just kind of comes to an end, right? But versus if I drag that out and it just kind of like adds that very, very subtle motion to it. But those super subtle motions are what is going to sell the animation a lot more, where people are like, oh, that's realistic, that makes more sense. But I'm happy you found that helpful, and I'm happy you asked that question so that I could show you how to do that bounce, and how to update those keyframes. Other than that, does anyone else have any questions for the rest of the class? If you guys do not, I'm going to leave you here at the end of this. Let me turn this back on so I could say goodbye. I think that today was good. I mean, obviously, review days are kind of more boring than learning animation, but through watching other people's reviews, you're going to know more what to do um, with your stuff, too. You learn a lot. Yeah, not a problem. Okay, guys, I will talk to you later. I hope you guys have a good Wednesday night, and I will see you on Thursday, and we're going to have a fun, this is going to be a fun project, this next one. We're going to make it even more fun than what it is online right now. So